This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Welcome to the Ghee Spot Podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us for conversations around sex, spirit, and all things self-care. All things self-care. All things self-care.
This is a journey into sound.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
You are a Ghee Spot Podcast with Katie Silcox.
Hey boo, I am so excited about this episode because I know what you're thinking. Katie, you're excited about every episode, and that's probably true, but I really am excited about today's because it's been something that I've been thinking a lot about. Amaury, my business manager, was just like, these are the number one emails that I get. I want you to talk about it on the podcast. So stay tuned. But first, a note from our sponsors. Have you guys heard about the ghee that I love, Ahara ghee? I think you have. But did you know that they make ghee to go? Yes, cute little biodegradable packets. And they're perfect for if you ever take food to work, or if you're like me, I love to go out into nature, camping, working on the road. You can bring your ghee with you. Ghee packets to the rescue. Take your flavor of ghee to go in little tiny single-serve eco-friendly packets. They have it over at iloveghee.com. As always, we have a special code that you can use, so make sure to go to our show notes to get the ghee code, and they'll know that we sent you. We also have a word from our other sponsor, Apothecary. Do you want to make your shopping a lot more easy? And do you want to give people gifts that are curated sets of wellness products based on that person's dosha or health concern? You can do it. Order a sample. We've got the link in the bio, and you can use the promo code GheeSpot10, that's GheeSpot10, for 10% off your order with Apothecary. And I'm going to recommend the You Got This set. Yes, You Got This for healthy guts. This gut kit is awesome, and it's got some of their flagship products like Follow Your Gut, their anti-inflammatory tonic with turmeric and astragalus. Those are two of my faves. Slay All Day for a sustaining and effective energy boost from within. And it's got maca in it, which isn't traditionally Ayurvedic, but a really wildly popular superfood herb that helps boost mood and supports sustained levels of energy. Head to our show notes and make sure to use the promo code GheeSpot10. And now on to the show. So, okay. Many of you know, if you've been a listener, if you haven't, welcome to the show. I was a yoga teacher in San Francisco Bay Area. I've been teaching yoga for almost 20 years now, and I feel like I've got a little bit of experience in the yoga industry. I was a writer for Yoga Journal. I later was an assistant to one of the most well-known yoga teachers in the country. And in that, I got a lot of experience in the yoga industry and the yoga scene and pop yoga culture. And it's something that I really love and I'm passionate about. And I study the science of yoga as well as the culture of yoga, especially in the West in America during what I consider to be the boom of yoga that occurred. I would say the boom happened maybe 8 years ago. We're on the other side of the boom, by the way, and I've been known to say these very sort of iconoclastic words, and that is yoga is dead. And I do think yoga is dead, but I'm saying it in the context as Nietzsche said, God is dead. If you just hear that phrase, God is dead, you may think Nietzsche is an atheist, and he may have been in later life, but he definitely wasn't in that moment. And what he was doing was calling people to reconsider our definitions of God, and he believed that man was making God in his own image. And I think that I say the words yoga is dead because it's a calling, right? To ask people to really question, what is this thing that we're doing? And especially the yoga industry. And I think by and large, the yoga that is being promoted and expressed in the United States and in the whole world right now, is doing way, way, way more good than harm. So that's my opinion. And I just also want to say I'm speaking today very generally, and I need to be able to do that to talk about big ideas. By the way, that's important that we be able to speak our thoughts and our minds and to speak in general terms, because that's how we get big ideas across. And I also want to say that I'm speaking from my experience, which is mine, and it's limited always when we're speaking from our individual experience. It's going to have our color and tone upon it. That said, I think I'm a really good mouthpiece for it because, again, so much time in the industry. So I was a yoga teacher in the Bay Area, and I was running around teaching about, at one point, 15 classes a week. And it ended up being just so a part of my journey, and I don't regret any of it. I love all of it. But there came a moment when I remember going in and teaching a class in downtown San Francisco, and looking for a parking place for like an hour and just finally thinking that I'd found one, and going in, of course, all stressed out from driving across the Bay Bridge in my shitty car and praying that my car would make it, and going in and teaching the class and coming out and seeing a big fat ticket on the car, and I'd parked it, of course, in the wrong place. And I don't remember how much the ticket was, because maybe blocked it out, but it was something so horrendous. It was like $85 or like $165. It was something ridiculous, because that's what happens in San Francisco with car tickets. And I just started instantly, I just started crying, because I realized that the amount of the ticket was probably how much I was going to make teaching yoga that whole week. Not just that class, but like the whole week. I was like, I'm not going to make $165 teaching yoga this week. And it was just this real moment in my life where I started really wondering if I would ever be able to continue doing something I loved so much in an industry where it's sort of set up so that the teacher can never really thrive as a professional. And so what I want to encourage all of you, and by the way, this conversation might be interesting to you if you're not a yoga teacher, because it's just an interesting cultural and unique phenomenon, but also I think it happens in other industries as well. And so it's really just a talk today about empowerment and honesty. I realized that yoga was, and this is what it's always been for me, and I just want to encourage everyone out there listening who might be a yoga teacher. Yoga teaching, especially the way it's set up in the United States, it's not a career path. It's a calling. If you love teaching yoga, I know so many of you just love to share your heart and love to share the techniques and tools that have been so invaluable for you. And that's a passion, and that's a calling. And I don't really consider yoga teaching a career path in the model that we currently have. And if you can kind of think of it that way, you can kind of start to reframe. And I'm going to talk about ways that you can make your yoga career happen, and the ways that you can broaden so that you can thrive and survive. One of my passions is to help women who have a heart for spirit-minded living, women who have a heart for nature, women who have a heart for these traditional practices. One of my passions is helping women step into their role and to fearlessly and shamelessly ask for money and to make a living from this, because one of the biggest obstacles to that is usually our own self, and that inner voice that says, am I really allowed to do this? Am I really worth this? There's some of you listening to this podcast right now saying, well, I don't think that yoga should be paid. These ideas that if we work in the realm of spirituality or holistic health or body working or anything where we've tagged the word spiritual to it, when we tag the word spiritual to things, it's basically saying it's worthless in our culture, or that we shouldn't be able to charge for it. And I think that's a huge problem, because it's saying that people who are on this planet as spirit workers, we don't get to get paid. And that has never, ever, ever been the way things have been in the past. The reason why spirit workers in the past didn't get paid is that they were usually in other societies supported by the government, or supported by the king, or supported by the wealthy aristocracy, or supported by the tribe. They were honored. They were given what they needed to be able to live. They were given a great place to live. They were given food. And we have that still in that old way. If you look at some of our religious institutions where the pastor or the priest, the church gives them a home. And that was so beautiful, because what it did was it said to that pastor, that priest, we don't want you to have to worry about a lot of the mundane things that we have to worry about. Let us do that. It's your dharma. It's your role to be the spirit man. And we want you to be able to do that role. We don't want you to have to worry about making a living. We're going to cover that. Wow. Wouldn't you like that if somebody said that to you? Hey, I see you, and I see your unique gift and talent. That, especially for women, isn't happening in our culture. So we have to start from there. We live in a capitalistic society, and therefore we have to be able to work in that society, and money is a form of prana. Money is a form of energy. And so I really encourage people to wholeheartedly, fearlessly, shamelessly step into that very innate need to be able to support yourself and not just survive, but thrive. That is a tantric understanding of our world. There is no difference between the spiritual and the financial. There is no difference between the mundane goal and the spiritual goal. That is tantra. So first and foremost, check in with what are your beliefs on money, and that's something that we go into in depth in Ayurveda School. We do a lot of shadow work around what's blocking you from the flow of money, and of course, not all of it's you, right? And that's why we're going to talk a little bit about that today. What is not my part in this? What is more of the structural part and the societal part? And if you want to go into what's your role, and that's the most important thing, join us. Come on in. Ayurveda School still has some spots left, but they're filling fast. Okay, so we've established yoga teachers need to make a living. Oh, there goes a really loud motorcycle. And the current system is not set up for that. The current system is a gig economy, and for many people, a side hustle. What does that mean? Gig economy means that you are not a paid worker in most of the yoga world. You are a 1099. You are a contractor. And what that means is that no one has to pay you workers' comp if you break your body and can't work and you have no way to make a living. It means you don't get any health insurance. There's no benefits. You're on your own. It also, when I say it's a side hustle, what I have seen is that the people that don't complain about the yoga world ever aren't my normal gals, who are these young, awesome, spirit-minded women who've spent probably around $5,000 to $10,000 on their yoga teacher trainings, doing it because they can't do anything else, because they love it. They're called, right? For the people that don't care about the payment of yoga teachers, who say things like, I don't do it for money. That's beautiful and wonderful. But those are people that it's normally just like a side thing or a side hustle. And a lot of those people have a lot more support. And I'm just going to be totally honest. A lot of them are women who have husbands that pay for their yoga teaching, right? And they don't need to make money around it. Or they have wealthy families that they came from. And there's no shame in any of that. And I hope you hear me when I say yay. But that's not the reality of a lot of people who do teach yoga. So we have to just remember, those of us where it's a side hustle, you don't need to do it for money, like that's great. But we have to remember the women and men who are called as spirit people, and we need to make sure that we're supporting them.
Hi there, this is Amaury, Program Manager at Shakti School with a quick update. If you know you're ready to go deep and spend a year learning with us, the next session of Ayurveda School starts in January, and the deadline for registration is December 31st. Getting back into the swing of learning can be a big commitment, but it's also the best catalyst for change and evolution. If Katie and I could have every woman do at least level 1 of Ayurveda School, we would. It's a year-long program that will both nurture and challenge you in the best way. It's everything we should have learned as beings with bodies and psyches that we were never taught in school. If you want to have a chat with me about whether this program is right for you, you can put a free call directly on my calendar at calendly.com/Shakti School /free coaching call. That's calendly.com/Shakti School /free coaching call, and will also put that link in the show notes. Have a beautiful day, sisters. Now back to the episode.
So data shows that most yoga teachers make under $25 an hour. Now you may be thinking, well, that's not bad. $20 an hour? That's way above minimum wage. But we have to take into consideration that most people in teaching yoga don't work 40 hours a week, so that's not a living wage. You really can't. I don't want to say you can't. It would be very intense to teach yoga for 40 hours a week. I think you would probably collapse. And, by the time you travel and you pay for that preparation time, insurance, clothes, training modules, taxes, it's really more like around $8 to $10 an hour. Also, another problem is that many yoga teachers are asked to take even more trainings than they have in the particular studio style of yoga. And so what you see is these teachers just continually ask to take more and more in different trainings to be within the ever-changing miasma of yoga styles and certifications. So let's talk a little bit of what are the basic pay models for yoga teachers. There's really 3 in my research. You get a price per head, and that can be I've seen it be as low as $3 per person that comes to your class to around $5. I haven't been in this yoga industry for a couple years, but that's really where it was when I was doing it. So that's a model. You just get paid per head. The issue with that model is if you're a new teacher or not a new teacher and you just get a class time that's not great, or you're in a studio that maybe doesn't do a great job marketing, or your classes don't fill up, and then you roll in and you can make $5 for an hour and a half of your time or more. Or we see a flat fee, and that's another model, which there's the upside is how much money you're going to make. It tends to be around $25 to $35, which again, not great if you consider all the training expenses and time and prep. Or the best model I've seen that still has its downsides is a flat fee plus a per head. So you're going to make $25 if you show up. And then on top of it, you may get a per head rate. I've also seen studios do a model where they do a per head, and then the more people that come, the less per head you get, which I also feel is slightly unfortunate for the yoga teacher. So what's challenging about that is, and what I've seen is a serious yoga teacher works really hard to, quote, build her following, market herself, grow her class, or his, and really build that class, and they may or may not be reaping the rewards from it, especially in just that flat fee model. Also, so often we think about these big, sweaty yoga classes with 80 people in them. That's by and large the complete exception to the rule. Most yoga classes in America are going to have about 5 people in them. And we really need to love and honor those yoga teachers down on the ground, teaching those classes, inspiring people to follow their breath and to feel into their bodies and their feelings. And those people are not being supported by our communities. And of course, another problem is that our teacher training model is just pumping out way more teachers than would ever actually be able to have a job in the yoga industry. And so there's that consideration as well. That said, I think over time, the people that really feel that yoga is a calling for them will continue, right? And so this is the model. And by the way, I'm not criticizing studio owners. If I myself had a studio, I would probably also do a flat fee and a per head rate. I see that as fair. But taking the perspective of a yoga teacher, it's still what's fair maybe in that moment. It's not going to be a sustainable career for the yoga teacher. And I actually don't think it's the studio's responsibility to make up for that. And I think it's the individual's responsibility. And we'll get to that in a moment. I don't think it's the studio owner's responsibility to fix this issue. That said, there are some really shady ass practices going on in the yoga world, and there are many, many, many. And I just want to highlight and feature one of them and bring it to light because it's one that really, I just feel came up for me a lot and I would notice. And studio owners will often have something called service yogis or karma yogis, borrowing from the beautiful practice of, service without selfless service. And so they'll get free labor from usually young people who may not have enough money to pay for yoga. And so it happens a lot with students and young folks. And so the studios say, great, you can take as many yoga classes as you want and you can work the front desk, which is technically a job that the studio owner should be paying for, right? And here's why. To say to a quote karma yogi, yay, like you can take as many classes as you want and you can sweep my yoga studio and mop my yoga studio and take all these classes. And it's a great deal for the studio owner. It's a great deal for the karma yogi who gets to take all these amazing free classes. Guess who it's not a great deal for? The teacher. The teacher is the one upon whose backs we are having our nice little karma yogi set up, where I don't have to actually pay for my workers. It's at the expense of the yoga teacher. And again, I'm speaking in generalizations, but it has been my experience that, I've gone to teach classes and half the room could be karma yogis. Or once it happened that I taught an entire class just of karma yogis, so I think I made $0. That really is not an energetic integrity. And so that's a practice that I think that the studio owners could revisit and really think about. And I once heard a studio owner say, oh no, but our karma yogis are really great ambassadors for the teacher. Like they talk up the teacher at the front desk, and that's just bullshit. That person who's working the front desk should be doing that anyways for the teacher as a paid employee. So as y'all can hear in my voice, this one really, really fires me up. I think that's an unfortunate practice. So all of this focus on the what's wrong. There's more I could talk about, but all this to say, yoga teaching in the United States and in most of Europe is not a career move, you guys. It's a calling. If you want to make yoga a calling, I'm going to give you some quick pointers on how to thrive, how I made it into a thriving business for myself. I began to see my yoga classes in San Francisco, where I lived, as service to my community. And when I shifted to that, I would go and there'd be two people and I would give all of myself to, not all of myself, but I would give my whole heart in those classes, because I began to think of my public yoga classes not as a way that I made money, but as a platform to serve my passion and help others, which is beautiful, and a place to market my actual business where I could make enough money to pay my rent and buy groceries and maybe even a little extra, right? So what I want you thinking about is what does make money? What does make money? Other things. Private sessions with people, for example, make around $60 to $150 an hour. That's an average. I began to do private sessions with people. I began to do special events and market those, maybe a 1 hour or 2 hour event where we would focus on something particular and I could charge more for that. I began to teach workshops, which is how yoga teachers actually do make money, because they get normally around anywhere from a 70-30 to a 50-50 split with a studio. I began to think about at a young age, okay, what else can I do peripherally that's going to be actually money making? And that's when I started thinking outside of the box. And my calling was also Ayurveda. And at the time I was studying Ayurveda, and I realized, oh wow, this sister science of yoga is so missing from the yoga world, and it's really the holistic mother that can envelop the particularity of yoga. So I began to study Ayurveda. I studied Ayurvedic bodywork, I studied marma therapy, I studied nutrition, and I began to offer private sessions in all of the above. And I started off making $65 an hour, which for a yoga teacher is an infinitely large amount of money per hour. And then I was able to work up to making $150 per hour. And I was able to serve people one-on-one. And that was a doable income. I began to think outside of the box. Who am I? What is my unique gift and talent? And what is the niche that I can begin to serve? And then I didn't teach 15 classes anymore, right? I taught my 3 to 5, right? Most popular, wonderful, easy to get to yoga classes in San Francisco. And I saw those classes as platforms. I mean, number one, they were places where I got to go and do my passion. And that was the main motivator. And when you're coming from that place of excitement and passion, oh my God, you guys, listen to this word in Sanskrit. There's 24 different meanings. Let's talk about that tonight, and then let's do a practice for it. Yoga became this blank canvas upon which I could pour all of my excitement and longings and education and intellect and heart. And I would walk into the room with that rather than walking in and seeing 10 people in the room and 5 of them were people who were karma yogis of the studio. And my heart would just sink. I would be like, wow, I'm working so hard and I'm probably going to get a parking ticket and this class is going to cost me money, right? I went from that mentality to there are 5 people here. Cool. I get to talk about the concept of smarana, Shakti, right, to these 5 people. And because I don't care about the money in this class, I know that it's going to be a little bit of a pure channel, and I'm not frustrated rather about money. And one of these people, it wasn't really my perfect psychology around this, but it just started occurring. One of those 5 people, 3 people, 2 people, one of those people would be touched and have their life changed by something that we did together. And if you can give people 1 second of peace and 1 moment of truly loving themselves, they'll sign up for whatever you're offering, right? Because they're not signing up for you, they're signing up for more of that. And my workshops thrived, and my retreats, all of them sold out, and my Ayurveda counseling practice thrived. And I was able to begin to feel a little bit safer in this world. And that's my longing for you guys that are yoga teachers and for all of us, right? To feel like we're thriving. There are 5 million more things I want to say about this, but it's our podcast and there's more, right? If you want more of this, whether you're a yoga teacher or in any other career, join us in Ayurveda School, because that's really where we go into it deeply. I hope today's talk fired you up a little bit. I hope it sparked some thought, and I hope it emboldened you to step into this new iteration of who you are in this world. We need you, and we need you thriving.
फूटे फूल